I built a seven-figure online fitness coaching ecosystem while I was still in med school, 1.2 million a year, 65% profit margins. Since built a second seven-figure business and live in Dubai now, 2 McLarens paid in cash, property, married, parents looked after, all the fun stuff that I used to dream about. But just a few years before that, I was living on £750 a month, juggling exams, hospital, trying to make a business work on the side. So it doesn't seem that long ago now, but I'm not saying all of this to try and impress you. I'm saying it because the contrast matters. Because most people see the outcome, very few understand the sequence of decisions that led to it. And my honest conclusion after 7 years of meeting hundreds of people in a similar journey, on a similar journey to me, most people won't do what it actually takes. And most people don't know what it actually takes. And not because they're incapable of doing the work, but scaling requires decisions, which most people delay, rationalize, give themselves excuses as to why it can't be them, or avoid difficult decisions entirely. So in this video, I'm not here to motivate you. I'm not a motivational guru. I'm going to break down how this actually happened, what allowed me to grow, and what nearly broke in the process. And most importantly, what people get wrong when they try and copy results without understanding the structure behind them. So I started med school, 18 years old, standard uni path. On paper, the perfect path, the status, the security, approval from parents. And, it was just the clear trajectory that everyone I knew would want to take. But at the same time, I was building a business around second year into uni. And internally, there was conflict. Because med school, it gives you certainty, but it came with a very real ceiling because you have fixed income, you have fixed systems that you have to abide by. You're literally trading your time for money and you don't really have any leverage in that pathway. I wasn't failing, I wasn't unhappy. I was just very, very well aware that the traditional route wasn't aligned with where I wanted to go. Because I saw it in my family, professors. It was very, very obvious that success as defined by the system that everyone gets put through isn't the same as freedom. And that was the turning point for me. It was knowing that I wanted financial freedom, I wanted location freedom, time freedom, but more importantly, freedom of choice to help who I wanted, as many people as I wanted, without the pathway that I've taken limiting my actual potential to help the amount of people I wanted. As cliche as it sounds, I just thought to myself very, very many times, what's the point of all of this if you don't get to keep anything in the end anyways? And I saw that most millionaires, billionaires, if they wanted to, they could have very, very significant impact on this world. It's just that if you go down pretty much any other path that doesn't lead to more and more wealth being created, you have limited leverage, or leverage that is limited to the level I wanted to help people at, to make some serious change. Because to me, it felt selfish to go down a career where I'd just about be supporting myself, my family, and a few hundred or thousand patients that I would see in my lifetime in my career as a doctor. Now, I'm not saying that is a bad pathway to go down. I'm not saying that it's not honorable, and I do believe it's a very, very important role, of course. But for me, where I envisioned myself going, where I envisioned the end goal being, it wasn't something that was aligned with the end goal. It was the short midterm thing, which I could see myself completing in the next few years. And that's why I didn't quit medicine immediately. I didn't make a dramatic announcement where I was just out of the game. I just made a quiet internal decision that I'm going to build properly and I'm going all in. And this was before results, before proof, before permission from society that you're doing the right thing, because once again you have nothing to show for it at that point. But I told myself this is something I'm all in on now, and that identity shift happened long before the income ever did. So instead of choosing one path clearly, either going all in on medicine and seeing that as the only career path, or going all in on the business and cutting off medicine completely, I chose the harder option. I was going to build the business alongside medicine, which of course meant more hours, more pressure, more risk, and very, very little margin for error, because you fuck up your hours, you're out the game. You fail your exams, you're out. You play small in business, you stay capped forever. You don't build leverage fast enough to buy back your time in the business, you're out. The business is dead. So the first thing I did, I went all in on learning sales, cold outbound. That's where I actually started. And for many, many months, there was nothing. So the same working hours, zero. And in the span of about 3 months, I made around £10,000. At that point, I did feel like I was grinding with absolutely nothing to show for it still. So early on, I just knew there was an information gap. There were people that knew something I didn't know. And I was all in on wanting to know what it takes to, of course, take it to the next level and get to where I needed to be. So I put about £9,000 out of the £10,000 I made back into my first mentorship. And that was during my med finals in second year. I had no safety net. I was still living on £750 a month. I was in Bulgaria at the time, so the rent was just being covered and food. And that was basically all I needed. But highest return thing I possibly did over the years, spent over 120 grand on mentorships now. Still feel that the highest return has been in information, which shortcut the path to the next level and the next level. Now, this wasn't about confidence in making a decision so I knew once I committed, I removed the exits. You listen to the person that's giving you the information, or you hold on to your ego and pretend you know everything forever, which of course keeps you in the exact same place. So in the business for a long, long time, I did absolutely everything myself. So sales, fulfillment, operations, lead generation, DMs, cold outbound, everything I got good at through repetition. So I was spending 4, 5, 6 hours a day on just cold DMing people. And that was every single day of the week between lectures. I was mainly given for US clients. So sales calls were all the way into the night. Had to set alarms to wake up at 2, 3 a.m. sometimes just to take a sales call, which I thought would close. And this is where I actually learned the technicals of building a business. It was just through repetition. Once you know you do a certain amount of something and it doesn't work, you change it to make sure it works. Unfortunately, it wasn't just theory that got you to the next level and the next level. It was just pure repetition, pure volume across a long, long period of time. And this was the loneliest and honestly most difficult part of business throughout the entire 7, 8 years I've been doing this now. Mentors were telling me to quit med school at that time as well, go all in. Of course, family was telling me to absolutely shut down the business side of things because it was distracting me from med school. So I had everyone up against me. There was very, very little early encouragement from anyone saying that I could do both at the same time. But there was a turning point when I had my first high ticket client, and that moment mattered to me more than just the amount of money that came in. It just meant a stranger would pay $3,000 for something I built in my bedroom. The model worked. It wasn't luck. I could send this many DMs. I could get this many call offers. I could get this many calls booked. I could expect this many to show up. I could expect this many to close, and the entire funnel was validated. And eventually it was just more volume. I hit my first 10, 15K months consistently. It was still solo. I was still exhausted. I was very close to burning out, but I had momentum and that kept me going. The breakthrough past the 10, 15, 20K a month ceilings was not from working harder. I was basically at capacity. It was 16 hours a day already at that point. It was from systems and data starting to form, and acquisition became more predictable. So it wasn't just something that was growing from referrals or content or inbound. Didn't really have any social media at that time, to be honest. It was setters, outbound, numbers, conversions being in place. I'd been sending thousands of messages at that point, had hundreds and hundreds of sales calls. Sales were improving, fulfillment was systemized, and had a coach at that point as well. And I kept trying to delegate more and more because I literally had no time, but failed miserably multiple times with coaches, with setters, with VAs in general. Closers, the hardest of all of them. If I'm looking back over the years, it was over 100 failed hires. It was just wrong incentives, bad hiring, onboarding, training management processes. But slowly the business did move towards stability. The revenue climbed towards the 100K month marks. But more importantly, I had a system which was consistent, predictable, scalable, and I wasn't just relying month on month for the income to come in and save me from the expenses before I just sunk. At different points through different mentorships, I was just exposed to more and more people playing in different ways. And I just realized you really don't need to be smartest person in the room to grow a business. You really don't need to know everything to actually grow a business. You just need to be 60% certain with a decision to take action on that decision for you to grow it, because you're going to fail anyways. You're going to fail the first few times anyways. The people I was around at that point had different standards, different time horizons, completely different decision-making frameworks. And at this point, I'd invested over 120 grand into mentorships. So I had consistent exposure to people at the next level. Now, not all of the money spent was good, of course, but it did raise my ceiling. At this time as well, other fitness coaches saw what I was doing. I was a poster boy in a lot of these mentorships. So they started asking for help, not because I was marketing a mentorship, but because the results were very obvious, created pool, and I generally just helped them all with their businesses and they scaled. So the general advice just turned into a mentorship naturally. And because I was very good at what I did, the entire mentorship just grew from referrals very, very quickly. Now, this is the part that most people skip. Throughout the entire process, growth exposed my weaknesses a lot faster than it rewarded my strengths. I went through the 100+ failed hires. I had fulfillment explode on me multiple times. Operational overwhelm was very, very real, and burnout was just a byproduct of all of this going on. So at every single stage, I had to confront the very hard truth that hustle scales the revenue, but it creates this operator bottleneck, which you have to be very clear on to be free from. It was either delegate properly, efficiently, very quickly, or let the business collapse. So I rebuilt everything multiple times. Systems, SOPs, delegation structures. Eventually built a 23-person team, removed myself as the bottleneck. The business stabilized, and for the first time it could run without me touching every single decision. It wasn't flashy, but it was mature. So the numbers were a lagging indicator, but eventually confirmed it. It was the 7-figure mark, 100K months, graduated med school, was very grateful to be able to donate over 100 grand to charities as well, and managed to move to Dubai, bought a property in Dubai as well. And in the past 6 months, just bought 2 McLarens in cash, one in Isle of Man, one in Dubai. But more importantly, the business worked without my presence, which meant I could focus on the things I actually wanted. So with the mentorship, Hypergrowth, I focus on the things I like doing. I focus on the things I want to do. And the fitness business is durable, so it's bulletproof and doesn't require me touching everything. So if I strip this down to principles alone, it's this: proximity compresses time. Old identities must die for new levels to exist. Going all in is what creates momentum. Systems always outlast motivation. Early progress requires a level of delusional self-belief. Mentorships shortcut almost every path and collapses learning curves. Environment dictates standards. Revenue without leverage is a trap. Long-term vision over short-term wins. None of this is theoretical, it's earned. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, okay, this makes sense, that is the point where most people stop, and that's the point where most people get stuck. I mean, I hope this video motivates you to an extent, but understanding how something worked for me will not produce results. A system that forces execution does. Like, everything I implemented worked because it follows a repeatable structure. It was clear objectives, forced execution, and most importantly, consistent iteration. Because without that, even the best ideas just fade if motivation isn't there all the time. So if you want to see how this is installed end to end, not just understood, but actually executed, there's a next step with the link below. I'll walk you through the full system and how to adapt it with your situation. If it applies to you, then great, take it. If not, then hopefully what you learned here as well, you can apply to an extent. Either way, difference from here on out is just execution.